Imagine a world where driving an electric car means covering nearly 800 miles on a single charge, without that irritating fear of being stranded in the middle of nowhere. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? Well, the revolution that promises to turn this dream into reality has already begun. Chinese giant CATL has introduced to the world an innovation called the condensed battery, a battery with such an absurdly high energy density that even experts are left speechless. 500 Wh/kg, practically double the best lithium-ion batteries we know today. The impact is immediate and staggering. Electric vehicles that today cover around 300 to 400 miles on a single charge could easily surpass 700 or even 800 miles without adding extra weight. It's almost like doubling the amount of fuel in the same size tank, but in a clean, silent, and revolutionary way. You can't deny that a revelation like this makes any tech enthusiast or even a casual observer wonder, how on earth did they pull this off? And that's where the mystery gets even more intriguing, because the secret lies in engineering worthy of a futuristic movie. The world of batteries has always been full of dazzling promises that, in practice, took years or decades to come true. But this time, the story seems different. CATL not only gave a flashy speech on stage, they presented real data and announced that mass production will start later this year. That, my friends, is a sign that we're witnessing a true game-changer in real time, not just another idea lost among lab prototypes. Range has always been the thorn in the side of electric vehicles. While manufacturers have scrambled for solutions, most consumers have still viewed EVs with suspicion because of a need to recharge during long trips. Now, with this new battery, the landscape changes completely. Imagine leaving one city, crossing 2 or 3 states, and only then needing to think about recharging. That alone has the power to convince even the most stubborn skeptics that the future of electric cars is inevitable and far more convenient than they ever imagined. What's also impressive is that this innovation doesn't increase the battery's weight. In other words, you don't have to sacrifice the vehicle's lightness and performance. And that's far more important than it sounds at first glance. Less weight means better handling, quicker acceleration, and of course, less wear and tear on components like tires and brakes. For those who love a sportier drive, it's like combining the useful with the extremely pleasant. It's as if someone solved all the main problems of electric cars at once, with a technological masterstroke that seemed impossible just a few years ago. Another detail that has intrigued many people is the fact that this battery opens up entirely new possibilities, not just for cars, but for the entire mobility industry. We're talking about drones capable of flying for hours, electric trucks that can cross entire states without stopping, and, why not, boats and small planes powered entirely by electricity. The condensed battery is like an invitation to rethink everything that today depends on combustion engines, massively expanding the reach of what we call clean transportation. But of course, every major technological revolution comes with questions that still need answers. How durable will these batteries be? And what about the cost? Because it's not enough to be good in the lab. It has to be good and affordable on the streets too. Even so, the simple fact that CATL is already talking about starting production by the end of the year gives off a strong scent that this time, we're not dealing with empty promises. And let's be honest, after so many disappointments with so-called miracle batteries, it's natural for people to be cautious. Behind the shine of innovation, there's an ingenious architecture that brings the condensed battery to life. Instead of simply copying what already existed, CATL decided to rethink everything, starting with the heart of the cell, the electrolyte. They replaced the traditional liquid with a semi-solid polymer gel, a kind of smart paste capable of conducting electricity much more efficiently. This material is not only more stable, but also safer, drastically reducing the risks of overheating or explosions that still scare some EV drivers today. The change in the electrolyte was just the beginning. CATL also innovated the materials used for the anode and separator, two critical parts that, until now, were responsible for many of the limits of conventional batteries. With new, lighter, and more resistant compounds, the movement of lithium ions inside the cell became much faster and smoother. It's as if, overnight, the internal roads of the battery transformed into express highways, where energy flows without congestion, reaching its destination quickly and efficiently. Another fascinating point is the mesh design of the internal structure. Picture a microscopic web, similar to a spider's web, that keeps everything organized and flexible at the same time. This network adjusts the interactions between polymer chains, which, in more casual terms, means the battery can withstand shocks, temperature variations, and charge cycles much better than before. It's as if it gained an elite immune system, ready to face the challenges of daily use without losing its breath. The great insight of this semi-solid structure lies in the balance between safety and performance. Instead of betting everything on speed and forgetting about stability, a mistake that has often led to recalls of electric cars in the past, CATL managed to perfectly balance both worlds. The battery not only charges and discharges more efficiently, but also maintains its internal integrity even under stress, whether from extreme climates or intensive use like speeding on highways or enduring long trips without pauses. The most curious thing about all this is that despite the technical complexity, the idea behind the condensed battery is, in a way, incredibly simple. Allow energy to flow with minimal resistance and maximum stability. If it were explained to a child, you could say they created a super slide where energy glides without bumping into anything, traveling from point A to point B as fast as possible without getting lost along the way. This new structure also brings another hidden but equally important benefit: durability. Since the transport of lithium ions is more efficient and less turbulent, the natural wear and tear of the battery over time is reduced. In theory, this means that the condensed battery can maintain its capacity over many more charge and discharge cycles, offering a longer lifespan, something that has always been one of the major concerns for electric vehicle owners. For those who closely follow Tesla and Elon Musk, it's clear that any bombshell news in the battery world inevitably intersects with the company's ambitious plans. And CATL's condensed battery would be no exception. Although Tesla has yet to publicly announce any intention of adopting this new technology, the history of partnership between the two companies leaves a wide-open door full of possibilities. And let's be honest, Elon Musk would hardly let something this revolutionary slip by without at least taking a very close look. What makes it even more fascinating is the timing of this technology's arrival. With the entire world accelerating the transition to electric vehicles and governments imposing increasingly aggressive emission reduction targets, a battery that nearly doubles driving range could be the ultimate ace for keeping Tesla firmly at the top. Musk has always talked about democratizing electric cars and making them accessible to the masses, and a battery like this could be exactly what's needed to turn that vision into practical reality. If we look at it objectively, Tesla already works miracles with current batteries, especially in its more affordable models. Imagine what they could do with double the energy density. The possibility of manufacturing lighter vehicles with greater range, and maybe even at lower prices, becomes real. A Model 3 with nearly 800 miles of range, a lighter, faster accelerating Model Y. Just thinking about it is enough to make your head spin. And knowing how Musk loves to surprise, it wouldn't be shocking to see some bombshell announcement in the coming months. Of course, Tesla doesn't adopt new technologies impulsively. The company is famous for its rigorous internal testing, which can take years to validate a new cell type or battery chemistry. Still, considering CATL's reputation, they already supply lithium iron phosphate batteries to Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory. In the close relationship between the two companies, it's hard to believe Musk isn't at least seriously considering this option behind the scenes. Another important point is the competitive advantage Tesla could gain if it manages to be one of the first to adopt condensed batteries at scale. In a market becoming increasingly competitive, especially with the rise of BYD, Rivian, and Lucid Motors, every innovation counts. And Musk knows better than anyone that whoever takes the next big technological leap first will dominate the narrative and, of course, capture the largest market share in the critical years ahead. From CATL's side, the partnership makes perfect sense too. Having a globally recognized customer like Tesla validating the condensed battery would be better publicity than any marketing campaign. Moreover, Tesla could help drive large-scale production, accelerating cost reduction and bringing the technology to the mass market much faster than if it were launched by smaller, more conservative manufacturers. When it comes to electric aviation, many people still raise an eyebrow. After all, the idea of a battery-powered airplane seemed, until recently, like a distant fantasy, the kind you only see in futuristic movies. But with the arrival of CATL's condensed battery, that scenario has undergone an impressive turnaround. Suddenly, what was once a dream has become a real possibility. That's because the main barrier to electric flight has always been the absurd weight of the batteries. And now, with double the energy density, that limitation is starting to crumble. According to CATL itself, the first applications of the condensed battery will be precisely in electric aviation, specifically in small aircraft and regional flights. And it makes perfect sense to start there. In aviation, every kilogram saved is a victory because less weight means lower energy consumption and greater safety in the air. Until now, traditional batteries simply couldn't provide enough range without turning the airplane into a flying anchor. But now, with lighter and more powerful cells, the game is changing radically. Imagine boarding an electric plane to travel 300 to 500 kilometers without a drop of fossil fuel, with zero emissions and absolute silence inside the cabin. That's the vision beginning to take shape. Regional aviation companies, eVTOL startups, those electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, and even industry giants are already eyeing this new world. With the condensed battery, the promise of urban air taxis and sustainable regional flights moves from utopia to real-world planning. And here's an interesting detail. By starting with aviation, CATL not only shows full confidence in the safety of its new technology, but also accelerates validation for other applications. If a battery can be certified for aviation, which has some of the strictest safety standards in the world, it automatically earns a massive seal of quality for use in cars, trucks, and other forms of transport. It's like passing the toughest engineering exam on the first try. Another exciting factor is that using them in airplanes could help rapidly lower production costs. Even though electric planes will initially be more expensive, they generate much less maintenance and operational costs compared to combustion aircraft. As the electric aviation market grows, the demand for high-density batteries will skyrocket, practically accelerating the learning curve, improving industrial efficiency, and driving prices down. In other words, everyone wins: drivers, passengers, and the environment. Amid all this transformation, there's still a cherry on top: the environmental impact. Traditional aviation is responsible for a significant portion of global carbon emissions, and any clean alternative in this sector would have a massive effect. If we can shift part of short-haul flights to electric aircraft equipped with condensed batteries, the reduction in pollutants will be enormous. It's a positive domino effect, one that gives a warm feeling in the heart just imagining it. In the heat of all this excitement, it's easy to forget that no technology is born perfect or affordable from the start. And with the condensed battery, it's no different. Although CATL has achieved a spectacular feat by doubling energy density, they were quite discreet, not to say mysterious, about the real cost of this new marvel. At no point during the launch did they reveal estimated prices or even optimistic projections. And let's be honest, when they hide the price right away, it's usually because it's still pretty steep. This omission raises an important red flag for those who closely follow the market. Producing something this advanced requires extremely sophisticated manufacturing processes, new materials that may still be difficult to obtain on a large scale, and of course, heavy investments in R&D. All this points to an initial scenario where the cost per kilowatt hour of the condensed battery could be much higher than traditional lithium-ion batteries that currently power today's electric vehicles. In other words, for now, it's an incredible technology, but probably reserved for more premium applications. But the story doesn't end there. If there's one thing the battery market has already proven, it's that time is the great ally of popularization. Just remember that years ago, an electric car was an absolute luxury. Today, there are models competing in price with combustion vehicles. CATL itself recently managed to reduce the cost of lithium iron phosphate batteries to less than $60 per kilowatt hour, a feat that seemed impossible a decade ago. If they apply the same aggressiveness in scaling and optimization, it's very likely that the condensed battery will also follow this curve of price reduction. Another ray of hope comes from production volume itself. The more companies want to adopt this new technology, the greater the scale of factories and, consequently, the lower the unit costs. And if Tesla, with its insatiable appetite for batteries, decides to embrace this idea, you can bet the pressure to bring costs down will be enormous. After all, for Musk, expensive batteries are a direct obstacle to his goal of popularizing electric vehicles around the world. There's still one missing piece to this puzzle: the cost of the materials used in the condensed battery. CATL has remained very quiet about this, perhaps because some of the innovative compounds are still rare or expensive to produce at scale. If new methods are developed to synthesize or replace these materials with more abundant alternatives, then we could see the magic happen. But until then, the most likely scenario is that the first generations of vehicles equipped with this technology will be higher-end models aimed at customers willing to pay for the innovation. When you look at what CATL has accomplished over the past few years, it's easy to see why so many people believe the company isn't just making empty promises with a condensed battery. Since its founding in 2011, CATL has been practically a machine of continuous innovation, delivering solutions that have changed the rules of the game in the battery market. One of the most emblematic examples was the launch of the sodium-ion battery, a bold and intelligent alternative to the near-total dominance of lithium batteries. While everyone else was focused solely on improving lithium-ion batteries, CATL decided to explore parallel paths. And it paid off. The sodium-ion battery they launched achieved a very competitive energy density by today's standards. Not to mention that sodium is abundant and much cheaper than lithium. Just this move alone showed that CATL doesn't get comfortable with today's technology. They're always planting seeds for what might come tomorrow. Another spectacular example was the creation of the Chilean battery, based on CTP, cell-to-pack technology. Instead of grouping cells into modules and then assembling the packs, CATL eliminated the intermediate module step, directly integrating the cells into the final pack. The result? Less weight, more usable space, and a noticeable jump in energy efficiency. For those who still thought battery evolution was limited to minor tweaks, the CATL battery was like a gentle but firm slap of reality. And the impact of these technologies wasn't confined to laboratories full of promises. The Xpeng G9 electric SUV, for example, was one of the first to use the CATL battery, offering a range of over 1,000 kilometers under ideal conditions. This kind of performance made headlines around the world and, even more importantly, became a powerful argument to convince skeptical drivers to make the definitive switch to electric vehicles. What's most impressive about CATL is that they don't just develop new technologies. They're able to mass-produce them quickly. The ability to turn prototypes into viable commercial products is extremely rare, even among industry giants. While other companies announce innovations that take decades to leave the lab, CATL is delivering commercial solutions in just a few years, sometimes even months. This shows they have a culture of execution just as strong as their culture of invention. What's even more exciting about this whole story is realizing that the mass adoption of the condensed battery isn't just a distant dream. It's genuinely on the horizon. CATL has already made it clear that they plan to start mass production in 2025, beginning with applications in electric aviation and shortly after expanding into consumer electric vehicles. The strategy makes perfect sense. Start with a sector where high energy density is a matter of life and death. Then invade the automotive market with a technology that has already been tested and proven under extreme conditions. And let's be honest, if there's one company that knows how to scale production like no other, it's CATL. It's no exaggeration to say they're practically a factory of factories, setting up production lines at record speed to meet the explosive demand for batteries worldwide. Their recent experience with lithium iron phosphate batteries showed that once the technology matures, CATL can produce at large scale with increasingly competitive prices. With the condensed battery, expectations are high that this magic will happen again. Of course, the beginning won't be for everyone. The first units equipped with the new batteries are expected to be premium, high-value models, used as showcases to demonstrate what this technology can do. But it's only a matter of time before it also reaches more popular vehicles. After all, the logic of industry is ruthless. The more you produce, the cheaper it gets. And with the growing pressure for electrification across all sectors, that scale should be reached quickly. Another factor likely to accelerate mass adoption is the fierce competition in today's electric vehicle market. Companies like Tesla, BYD, Lucid, and even traditional automakers like Volkswagen and Ford know that battery range, weight, and cost are the most valuable cards in this game. Whoever adopts a technology that doubles range without doubling cost first will take the lead in a race that is already electrifying. So it's no exaggeration to predict that the race to put condensed batteries into cars will be intense and highly beneficial for consumers. Moreover, the stationary energy storage market itself could become a major driver for this new technology. Imagine solar and wind energy storage systems that are much more compact and efficient, using less space and offering more capacity. The condensed battery isn't just a revolution for cars. It has the potential to change how we store and use energy on a global scale, further strengthening the transition to renewable sources.